Okay, it's about the 4th of February, I think. And as you can see, we're having snow. And then later today, the wind's going to start and it's going to become minus 26 tonight and with a wind chill of minus 41. So I got my wood stove going and this will be the coldest night I've seen in Nova Scotia in 12 years. Hi, it's Vaughan in Nova Scotia, Canada, westcoatbellpottery.ca. It's a VPN9, which means it can mix 22 pounds of clay at a time, which is a bag of clay here in Canada. So I figured that was the size that I needed. Basically, I throw 1 or 2 bags of clay a day, and it's going to be very adequate, I hope. I have only turned it on to see if it works. I haven't put any clay in it yet, but I'm going to do the video of that right now. So basically, what I recommend is attaching this to here first, this part here, which is the air chamber that kind of filters air, I guess. And then you've got this blue cable to attach, which you can screw in the back here and the back end here. And that makes it easier. I think it was even attached to this when I got it, and then I actually attached this first and then I attached that cable over there. So make sure you attach this part to here first so you can turn it around, and then when you attach it to that one there, it doesn't spin this and get the cable all twisted up. So that's the main thing. The little thing they point out and they emphasize this thing on the back, which I guess is a safety cutoff. That thing there, that was easy for me. I figured that out instantly because there are little plastic channels that you push in and it fits. So that wasn't an issue. So let me just show you. I have no clay in there at the moment. When you open this, the engine cuts off, and that's a good safety thing because you don't want to stick your hand in there. You might lose your hand. So basically when you open it, it cuts off, and that's great to have that safety feature. So there's a safety switch here, which you lift up, and now you've got power. So if you turn this on, it's now mixing. All right, so when I lift this up, it turns off. I love that. There's no stress or anything. And then you turn it on again. So that's a nice feature to have with this. And you've got a speed thing here, slow, and it tells you not to do it slow because it burns. Not burns, but it actually makes the fan slows down, so it causes the motor to heat up. So it says to keep it on full speed or medium to full speed, and that's fine with me because it means it mixes faster. You don't need the vacuum pump until your clay, of course, would be mixed, and then it shows you just basically that clamp, because that holds down the seal here. The cap is on the end, and basically you've got just turn on the vacuum. This thing here was loose, which is on purpose. So I put a couple of pieces of duct tape just to hold this. You don't want to put any scratches on this seal here. And that's where this is turning on the inside, so that's why they have this, so that that's where you get your vacuum created, and then it sucks it out of the actual clay. But I put that on there because that just holds it. So I kind of feel like that would have been nice to have something where you could have like a little hinge type of thing to have that, but duct tape does it. So, but I'm not sure. Maybe they could tell me if they call me and tell me why they don't want to have that fastened. I'll never lose it, I'm sure, but you know, I don't want it to fall on the floor and scratch the seal that goes around there. So I just, you know, duct tape. If I ever go to the moon, I'm taking duct tape. Right. But and then if you want to create a vacuum, you want to keep it in mix for the actual vacuum, and you just turn it on. I closed that thing there, I realized that was open. Now it's sucking air out of that chamber there. My ears are going to start popping. So we have a vacuum created in there. And if you want to release the vacuum, because you won't be able to open this now with the vacuum on, so you just do that. And now the vacuum is gone. So that's the operating procedure, so it's very simple. So I think it's, you know, it's not brain surgery. You just got to read the manual, that's what it told you to do and all that. So turn off the mixer as well. Now we should be able to open this. I'm going to get some clay. But I've got 25 going in the first batch because it takes more the first batch. But I want to show you that you really shouldn't throw in a big chunk of clay. And I don't know if I have anything in here or not. Let's weigh this one first. This is 7 pounds of clay, so altogether here I've probably got 25 pounds. I don't know if it's recycled clay, if I have a sponge in here, a pin tool or whatever. So it's a good idea just to cut your clay up. Okay, so we feel like that's pretty good. These are available, I think you can get one at Bailey Pottery now actually, I've seen them, but they were from England. It's a really useful tool, but you could make one out of a piece of rebar, tie a guitar string to it. But those are really good. So we know this clay is clear, it weighs 7 pounds. And you put it in. Try not to get it on your place where you're going to be creating your vacuum here. I used to have on my other pug mill, there was a little metal grid that would stop you getting your hand in there anyway. But this one, the motor turns off, so that's even better. So of course then you can just press it down in there. So you close it down, and it says to let it turn half a turn. Oh, you don't need that down on there. So we simply yep, it took it right in there. That was enough just to turn it round a bit. So now we have probably about 10, 12, 14 pounds in there. So it looks like I didn't have any sponges or tools in there. Yeah, there's still lots of air in there. I can see lots of air pockets. And the last piece. And I've got it on full speed. This is also a 110 volt mixer. My other one, the Peter Pugger one, not Peter Pugger, the Venco that I just sold was a 220 outlet, and that one, I don't know why it needed that extra power, because this one is doing okay. So whether, I mean, it might make a breaker go, who knows? But got to keep this down. But and you can fasten that obviously. Now it's just mixing. So now you're supposed to keep your eye on this to see if you ever get clay coming through. So you just have to keep peeping. But you know, with the duct tape there, I'm happy because it's actually going to hold that so it doesn't fall, and then I won't put it down somewhere. Also, the bit of duct tape means I can just lift it up to fasten it very quickly. It says here, it says, got to, if you can read this, 20 to 25 pounds first batch. Yeah. And that primes the nozzle, it says. And then after that, Pug recommended 20-25 pounds per batch. Keep checking the vacuum changer in case you've got any clay in there. And if you've got dry clay powder present, you shouldn't turn the vacuum on at all until that's all mixed in. That makes sense. Okay, the mixer has been going, it says, I did find a place in there where it says most batches take about 5 minutes to mix, and you shouldn't go a lot longer because it warms the clay up and then that makes it less plastic. So, I have got it mixed. It's been going 6 minutes. So I'm going to close this door. I've got my end, the rubber cap on, and this is sealed up, and it says to turn it to vacuum on, close this, so now the vacuum is paused, it's spinning round fast, so I'm turning that off, and I'm going to start pugging. Pugging. So now we remove the cap. Oh, it's squirting out. There you go. It's nice to have something plastic there that actually makes the clay slide. I've got a scale here. Let's see how much we're getting out. 6.5 pounds. I just put a little clay plastic scraper there that it would slide on. I put in around about 25 pounds, I thought, the first time. You had to do 25 and after that 22. Cutting the clay up, I did find some foreign bodies. That's from my trimming pads. I wondered where it had gone. 7 pounds. I think when they call it priming the nozzle, it's when you always have some clay left in the nozzle for the next batch. So your first batch out, you don't get as much out as you put in. Because I think we're only up to 13.5 pounds at the moment, and that's not very big. I'm going to let the vacuum go and see if that actually, because the vacuum's here, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's sped up. Yeah, I thought that was holding it back a bit. Not much though. Okay, I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to turn it back on mix for the next batch. And the vacuum is off and the speed is still at full. So what did I get out? 5 pounds there, 13.5, 18.5 to 19 pounds out of the first batch. So we lose a little bit of clay, I guess. But it's still there. It's in the pug mill. So there should be some clay in here, it says. Yep, there is. And you have to make sure it's turned off, of course, when you put your hand in there. It says to do that. There's a rubber panel that goes, a shield inside there that protects it from pulling clay into the main body of the pug mill, I guess. So that's a good idea. But there's nothing, not much, just a tiny little bit in there. We let the vacuum go, so we should be able to open this. Oh yeah, it's empty. All right. There's clay on the walls in there. I assume that just stays there forever. So I'm now going to mix the rest of my clay I don't have much, probably only have about 100 pounds of clay to mix this time. But okay, so it's been mixing for about 5 minutes. The clay, I felt it is getting a little warm, so it's time to close up the latch again. The cover is on. Turn this back to vacuum. That blocks the air from coming in this way, and then you turn it to vacuum. Yep, vacuum straight away. The Peter Pugger says that it can mix dry scraps right into clay, and that will save me a huge amount of space because I recycle all my clay, so I have to have lots of buckets like this one full of sloppy clay that I then dry out on the table, which I've shown in other videos. I'll give you a quick clip of it in this one, and that's a 4-foot square table that takes up a lot of space in the studio. So if I can get rid of that, I'll be able to do something else there. I'm looking forward to this working and that being gotten rid of. So I have 18 pounds of dry clay scraps from the trimming wheel, and I got my bucket of slops there as well. So I'm going to add half of this, and then I'm going to add water to it to see what happens. Well, I'm wearing my COVID mask. It came in useful. And there I have an air purifier that I run in my studio whenever I think I'm doing anything dusty. It's got a HEPA filter in it. So I would advise for $200-300 you can get yourself a filter in your studio. That might save you a lot of health issues later on. So I'm just going to weigh this. It was 18 pounds. It's now 11, so I've got some more to go. That's 12 pounds of clay, dry, and there's some clay in there already. So with water, I'm going to guess, I'm just guessing. I recycle my water in this studio too. It says to add it to this side when you add moisture, so that's what I just did. Okay, I had the spins, which is what they tell you in the book, which is when you add a bit too much water at a time to the dry clay and it gets too sloppy, which it didn't get over sloppy. I just dug this out of the actual top of the machine and it's actually pretty firm, but it mixed it really good. It's just that it was spinning. Which means that the augers got too wet and sticky and it was just causing it to spin. So I had to dig out all the clay that I could, and then I have a bag of really dry, firm clay that's too hard to throw, so I threw that into it and it started it moving again. So I would advise not to put too much water in, that's right, if it's a mistake, but also to keep a bag of stiff clay handy, because that's what actually got it pushing through in the end. So that's a good thing to know. So now I just have to load this up again with this clay that I dug out, because it's actually not sloppy at all. Let's get that in there. That's how this part hasn't been de-aired. I turned the vacuum mill off basically while I was digging the clay out, disconnected it and everything. And now I'm just going to run the clay that I got out through it again. It's mixing now, but it doesn't need to mix very much because it was already mixed thoroughly. So I'm just going to do that and then turn it on again. And now it's supposed to knock the cap off, but I always lift that off anyway. It's coming out now. So that's what they call the spins, and I did get it my first time using the bug mill from using those dry scraps and just probably adding too much water at a time. It tells you to use half a cup at a time, and I had so much scrap in there I poured more than that. Just running all this stuff back through it now, so that's basically a good lesson to learn anyway, but it works good. We'll be throwing it. Yeah, totally empty now. So there you go. Okay, I'm a glutton for punishment. I have some dry clay left over here. So let's see what this does. Now it says half a cup at a time. That's tiny. So I have a full cup in there. I'm not going to add to it. So every time you open the handle, the motor goes off, so that's really nice. You can also turn it off with the red button, so you can do that before you open the handle if you want to. And when you put it from next to Pug, you have to press it off first, and then turn it to Pug, and plug it out. There's a few things to remember, basically, and you shouldn't run the pump for very long because it sucks clay into this thing. But if you can see in there, I've been pugging a lot, and there's only been a couple of tiny bits of clay in there, so it really hasn't sucked much in there at all. So let's have a look and see. So it'll turn off, and there's still dry material in there. Just here, this is just liquid slops from the wheel. Well, what I could do is pour the dry clay into that, which is what I used to do with the other pug mill,
and then pour it out onto a table and dry it out. Well, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. But what I've decided to do is I've got some bisque, large bisque bowls that I'm going to dry the clay out in those from my slop wheels, and add my trimmings to that, so it'll firm it up inside the actual, those big bowls that are just bisque, and that should help, because I'm not putting it in there, I don't think, totally dry after this. But it says it can do it. Let's have another look. There's still some dry clay going around in there. Off the top of the time. We've got dry clay in there still. This is what I'm going to do instead of building my mountain of clay, which I've shown in other videos. This is just a bisque bowl, and I'm going to pour my clay slots into this, and it's basically going to lose moisture from up through the clay on the outside, and then when it's stiff enough on the inside, I'm just going to take it and put it in here. So this should save a lot of space. There you go. We'll see how long it takes to dry out. It's quite stiff, but you can actually move it around, but it's a bit stiff for working with, I think, so I would add a bit more moisture there. It's not fun, it's close. So that's about another half a cup of slip. Okay, I have been mixing this for 10 minutes, or maybe a little bit longer, maybe up to 15 almost, because they were still dry each time I opened it up. So with the dry clay, but only adding a tiny bit of water at a time, half a cup at a time, it hasn't bound up and started spinning, so that solved that problem. And the clay now is quite plastic, and I've added a little bit of the other clay, so it's squeezing quite nicely without sticking to your fingers. So I'd say this is ready to pug, but I actually, because it wasn't enough in there, I actually put some of the other clay that I put already in just to build up enough, so I feel like I got enough to get something to force the other clay out of the nozzle. So seal it up, start mixing. Now we turn on the vacuum pump. The vacuum gauge. Turn off the actual motor, turn it to pug. Yep, there you go. It worked. Oh, and it slides nice, and you got the rubber thing on the end anyway. I think it's going to be. I'm going to try throwing it next, so we'll let you know how good it is. I've pugged about 100 pounds of clay. When I look at what I've got done, it's 4 bags of clay, which I think is probably about 100 pounds of clay. And it's taken me longer to do this than I did with my Venco, because that would pump the clay out so fast. I can do like 250 to 300 pounds of clay in an hour and a half. So the Venco is faster, but the Venco, I don't have the vacuum pump attached. I took that off a long time ago. I took the screen out, so it pugs faster, but it doesn't de-air the clay. I still have the actual vacuum pump. The person who's buying it is going to take the vacuum pump and maybe they'll start using it again. But I found it was slowing it down so much, and that's what this one I think goes slower because you're using the vacuum pump as well. Because you're mixing, letting it do nothing for a while, it's not pumping anything out, and then you're pugging. So I bet it's just as fast at pugging, but you have to do the mixing too. But that's going to take my need for a big table away, because I can do it all in here instead of having a prep table that's 4 foot square in a studio. It takes up a lot of space. So that was my reasoning for getting this in the first place anyway. So the next thing, I have to try throwing it. Another nice thing about this pug mill, the other one I used to wrap plastic bags around everywhere to keep it from drying out inside the pug mill. This one you've got a seal, and you have another seal on that end there, and that's going to stay totally moist in there till the next time I use this, which will be a lot more frequent now because I'm only pugging little bits at a time. So once these bowls dry out, I'll just be pushing it straight through there anyway. But it's nice because I don't have to worry about anything drying out or whatever. So, but it's a brand new pug mill, so I'm going to clean my sponge and I'm going to clean the pug mill.
Just got up this morning and it's been so cold overnight at minus 26 centigrade, and it's so windy that the water isn't freezing, but as you can see it's swirling mist off the water. I have not seen that before since being here this morning. This is unique. Okay, tip for potters. When you're cutting clay, put it on a raised board so you can actually cut all the way through. And I measured a 1 pound ball of clay so that I can actually cut all of these the same thickness and get 1 pound balls of clay. As long as I'm accurate, I guess. And now I got my plastic down here where I've been putting them to cover them over straight away so they don't dry out.
It is really cold today, and the waves have been really quite white-capped. There's significant wave blowing. That dog gets again. And I don't know how these seagulls survive. It's minus 16. I'm going into water.
This is just about, well, they'll be just under or just over a pound because I didn't weigh, I just did it by the size of the ball, basically. So now this wheel has that little squeaky sound when it's going slow, so I apologize up front, but it's the only wheel I use for this dark brown clay or sandy colored clay. Now this has got a lot of grit in it because I mixed in some grits in my sculpture clay to get the clay to go through there. So it'll be a nice clay, but it might be a little rough on the hands. I got to make some small butter dish for the dome to fit over the top. So that's what I'm throwing here. It's a little place where the butter sits, and then you've got the wall that holds the dome. Let's see if that's the right size. I think it might be a bit small. Yeah, just a touch small. I'm going to use this side of it. There you go, perfect. So that's where the butter sits, and then I use this little rib here, put some water on the top part there, and I slide this underneath with my finger above the rib
and squish the two together to make a flange that goes further out. There you go. So that little dome will sit over the top of that, and you have enough, even with the dome sitting over the top, to grip the edges to actually lift your butter dish up if you're passing it to somebody on the table. Just taper that in at the top a little bit. So it's not to hold a big piece of butter, just a smallish piece. This bat system is nice because you can pop the bats right out. You don't have to cut them off. I talked about these. I found these at a recycling center once. I think they cut out some discs for sinks or something. It's a laminate. It's like a thick piece of plastic. So these are round. So as long as you curve the bottom, they're already round. It's luxury. I'm so used to throwing square balls, square blocks of clay into rounds, where you have to use a lot of pressure there. So there was no air bubbles in the last one. The clay seems very nice. Run your finger from the outer edge, you open it up to there, and then run your finger back to the center, and that actually compresses the clay in the opposite direction from opening it up, and so you get a nice dense base where you don't actually worry about it cracking as it dries. Once again, we'll see that, and then I'm going to trust my eye this time. Slide that underneath, or put some water on there. And then press your finger over the rib and it widens that. It's nice because you also give your wire will be able to cut through there very easily. I will measure it just to be sure. But it's throwing perfectly. No lumps. Oh, this side. Perfect. Your eye does that after you've done it for this many years. But I'm going to taper it in just a touch to make sure at the bottom there that it does fit all the way down when the dome goes over the top. There we go. Hear that little chirpy squeak? I can't throw this wheel away because of that. And the motor's still really good. Let's see if we can throw a mug with it. It's quite gritty. That's it. Flat, but I can curve it like that. So when I bang it down, you know it's right in there. No air bubble trap. The bat's wobbling a bit in the frame. It's better. Stop wobbling. It's around and around, so it does move occasionally, like now. Stopped again. That's why the square ones are actually probably better, but I got these for $1 a piece, so I couldn't resist. And I just put a hole in my other bat. So it's a nice snug fit. Now this, let's see how plastic the clay is, if it can stretch and go right up. It's said that you lose plasticity if the clay heats up a little bit. Well, I didn't seem to be getting it hot, so... I had a Peter Pugger years ago, 20 years ago, that used to mix, I think, 300 or 400 pounds of clay at a time. And I actually donated that to the Women's Studio Workshop in Rosendale, New York. Because in the end, I just wasn't making my own clay. That's a dusty job to make your own clay. I didn't want to do it. Look at the grit. You can see the lines coming in the clay because of the grit. I used that sculpture clay to push the clay through, and it was rolling, it was spinning. It was a gritty sculpture clay. And as you can see, it leaves lots of grit lines. I can get rid of them. Just press the rib down with your finger behind and you get rid of those little lines. Now it may mean that we've got some... I'd have to find my my leather. It's always around here somewhere. Ooh. Do I have this one? Yeah, there you go. This is the tool. Somebody asked me about this tool too. Oh, that rubber band is really dry. I don't think that'll work. This tool is to smooth your rim. It's working. Just like a leather does. The clay slides in between. So it compresses the rim so you don't have grit shining through. Do I have a sponge on a stick here? No, I don't. I opened it up a little bit there. The sponge drags grit up to the surface, and that's why they use a leather. But I was always losing my leather, so I designed a wooden one of these, and then Freddie Moretti made me this one. So Freddie Moretti, he's one of my subscribers. You'll find him on YouTube, and he has a pattern for a 3D printer that he makes it with. But I think he just gives you the pattern so you could take it to your local library and have them make it. Ooh, that bat span then, didn't it? Okay, so I say we have a winner. Peter Pugger. The wind from the north has been blowing the water out of the bay, so these islands are rarely here. That's the footings for my wharf that used to be on this building. It's really, really nasty today. Don't know how the seagulls survive that. See, the bakery wharf is looking worse for wear. Okay, I just finished making all the pieces and using up all that clay that I just pugged. So we got all these pieces made. I got bowls, bowls and bowls, and more over here. So I did make about 100 pounds worth in weight of pottery, including a few fish. I think I have one at the end there as well. So it was a lot of pieces that I made, but I just trimmed everything this morning, and that is what I'm hoping now will be my procedure, because I just ran the trimmings with some clay from my slops that I'm still drying out for earlier in the video. So the dry trimmings and the slops in the pug mill, and I just pugged it out, and here it is. These were trimmings half an hour ago, and they are now smooth clay. So it works. That's what I was hoping, basically. Like, I won't have to have a table with all my slops spread out all over it. I wanted to talk a minute about why I bought a new pug mill, because I think every pottery loves the idea of having a pug mill, and I did for a long time, and then after about 5 years in business, I bought a pug mill, and I had that one for 35 plus years, and it still works, and that's the one I just sold. But it works really good. But I took the de-airing off that one because it seemed to be quite slow. And now with the de-airing, that one will pug 300 pounds an hour. So it's without the de-airing pod, it's worked fine. The one I've just bought, as I've been estimating, it took me an hour and a half to do about 100 pounds in clay. But I don't have to have a table now to sort of soak my clay slops, so I'm saving 15 square feet of space in my studio to actually put something else in there. And I can just, as I just showed, I can put my trimmings right in there with a bit of clay slops off the wheel, and I've got clay in half an hour. So I just pugged about 20 pounds of that again. So it worked. But the cost, it was, to buy a pug mill today is a lot of money. I mean, it looks like you can get some
a smallish one. In Canadian dollars, I just paid about $6,500 plus tax for it, so it's about $8,000 to buy a pug mill. In Canadian dollars, that's about 5,500, 6,000, no, 6,500 in US dollars. But anyway, it's a big expense. So you've got to estimate how long you're going to have this pug mill, and how long it takes to basically pay for itself. But hopefully this will last the rest of my life. The other one lasted, it's still going, you know, so you got 35 plus years in that one. I think that, you know, you can wedge clay by hand. I've had carpal tunnel on both of my hands, and I've had the surgery and it worked, but I don't want to get that again. So wedging is hard on your hands and your shoulders. This is easy. And I would say if you have a good year, and you need to spend some money for tax purposes, whatever, that's what happened last year. I had a good year and I had some surplus at the end, so I bought a new pug mill. But if you're a small studio and you don't do very much recycling, I mean, I do about 1,200 pounds of recycled clay a year. So at $1 a pound, we pay that for clay up here. And $1,200 a year, this pug mill will pay for itself in about 6 years. So it makes sense financially. So you have to consider all those things, I would just say. You can live without one, but it makes life a lot easier. So just think about it, and you know, let me know what you think if you want in the comments. I mean, I don't think it's an essential piece of a pottery studio, but it certainly makes life easier.